Hi, it's Cory Doctorow, and welcome to part 6 of my reading of my 2004 novel Eastern Standard Tribe, the full text of which is downloadable from craphound.com/est. Not a lot of notes for you before the reading this week. There's a signing coming up for my short story collection Overclocked. That's at Secret Headquarters Comic Store in Silver Lake in Los Angeles at 7 p.m. on Thursday. That's this coming Thursday, the 15th, day after Valentine's Day. And Vancouver, March 8th and 9th at Simon Fraser University, both their Vancouver and their Burnaby campus. I'll have more details for that shortly. Mostly what I've been doing these days is rewriting my next novel, Little Brother. I've been writing a new ending for it. Little Brother probably won't be the final title. I'm leaning this week to Patriot Acts or possibly Homeland, but it remains to be seen. Bounce both of those off my editor. I'll let you know if he has any ideas to the contrary. So, back to Eastern Standard Tribe. I'll open with Chapter 14. I just don't get it, Fede said. Art tried to keep the exasperation out of his voice. It's simple, he said. It's like a car radio with a fast-forward button. You drive around on the Mass Pike, and your car automatically peers with nearby vehicles. It grabs the current song on someone else's stereo and streamloads it. You listen to it. If you don't hit the fast-forward button, the car starts grabbing everything it can from the pier, all the music on the stereo, and queues it up for continued play. Once that pool is exhausted, it queries your pier for a list of its peers, the cars that it's getting music from, and sees if any of them are in range and downloads from them. So it's like you're exploring a taste network, doing an automated guided search through traffic for the car whose owner has collected the music you most want to listen to. But I hate your music. I don't want to listen to the stuff off your radio. Fine, that's what the fast forward button is for. It skips to another car and starts loading off its drive. Fede started to say something, but Art held up his hand. And if you exhaust all the available cars, the system recycles, but asks for peers from files collected from other sources. You might hate the songs I downloaded from Al, but the songs I got from Benny are right up your alley. And the war drivers backstop the whole system. They've got the biggest collections on the freeway, and they're the ones most likely to build carefully thought out playlists. They've got entire genres, the whole history of the blues, say, from Still Cylinders on those drives. So we encourage them. When you go through a pay point, a toll booth, we debit you for the stuff that you didn't fast forward, the stuff you listened to and kept. Unless, that is, you've got more than, say, 10,000 songs on board. Then you go for free. It's counterintuitive, I know, but just look at the numbers. Okay, radio with a fast forward button. I think I get it. But who's going to want to use this? It's unpredictable. You've got no guarantee you'll get songs you want to hear. Art smiled. Exactly. Fede gave him a go on wave. Don't you see? That's the crack cocaine part. It's the thrill of the chase. Nobody gets excited about beating traffic on a back road that's always empty. But you get on the M5 after a hard day at work and drive it at 100 kilometers an hour for 2 hours without once touching your brakes, and it's like God's reached down and parted the Red Seas for you. You get a sense of accomplishment. Most of the time, your car stereo is going to play the same junk you've always heard, just background sound, but sometimes, oh, sometimes you'll hit a sweet spot and get the best tunes you've ever heard. If you put a rat in a cage with a lever that doesn't give food pellets, he'll push it once or twice and give up. Set the lever to always deliver food pellets, and he'll push it when he gets hungry. Set it to sometimes deliver food pellets, and he'll bang on it until he passes out. Heh, Fede said. Good rant. And it's cool. Fede looked off into the middle distance a while. Radio with a fast forward button. That's great, actually. Amazing. Stupendous! He snatched the axe head from its box on Art's desk and did a little war dance around the room, whooping. Art followed the dance from his ergonomic chair, swiveling around the interface tchotchkes that branched from its undersides, chittered to keep his various bones and muscles firmly supported. His office was more like a 3/5 scale model of a proper office, in Lilliputian London style, so the war dance was less impressive than it might have been with more room to express itself. You like it then, Art said, once Fede had run out of steam. I do. Great. So, yes. So what do we do with it? Should I write up a formal proposal and send it to Jersey? How much detail? Sketches? Code fragments? Want me to mock up the interface and the network model? Fede cocked an eyebrow at him. What are you talking about? Well, we give this to Jersey, then they submit the proposal, they walk away from with the contract, right? That's our job, right? No, Art, that's not our job. Our job is to see to it that VDT submits a bad proposal, not that Jersey submits a good one. This is big. We'll roll this together, and it's bigger than Mass Pike. We can run across every goddamn toll road in the world. Jersey's not paying for this, not yet anyway, and someone should. You want to sell this to them? Well, I want to sell this. Who we sell it to is another matter. Art waved his hands confusedly. You're joking, right? Fede crouched down beside Art and looked into his eyes. No, Art, I am serious as a funeral here. This is big, and it's not in the scope of work that we signed up for. You and me, we can score big on this, but not by handing it over to those shitheads in Jersey begging for a bonus. What are you talking about? Who would pay for this? You have to ask? VDT for starters. Anyone working on a bid for Mass Pike or Toll Pass or Fast Pass or Europass. But we can't just sell this to anyone, Fede. Why not? Jesus, why not? Because of the tribes. Fede quirked him half a smile. Sure, the tribes. What does that mean? Alright, you know that stuff is four-fifths horseshit, right? It's just a game. When it comes down to your personal welfare, you can't depend on time zones. This is more job than calling, you know. Art squirmed and flushed. Lots of us take this stuff seriously, Fede. It's not just a mind game. Doesn't loyalty mean anything to you? Fede laughed nastily. Loyalty? If you're doing all this out of loyalty, then why are you drawing a paycheck? Look, I'd rather this go to Jersey. They're basically decent sorts, and I've drawn a lot of pay for them over the years, but they haven't paid for this. They wouldn't give us a free ride, so why should we give them one? All I'm saying is we can offer this to Jersey, of course, but they have to bid for it in a competitive marketplace. I don't want to gouge them. Just collect a fair market price for our goods. You're saying you don't feel any fundamental loyalty to anything, Fede? That's what I'm saying. And you're saying I'm a sucker for putting loyalty ahead of personal gain? After all, no one else is, right? Exactly. Then how did this idea become ours, Fede? I came up with it. Fede lost his nasty smile. There's loyalty, and then there's loyalty. Uh-huh. No, really. You and I are a team. I rely on you, and you rely on me. We're loyal to something concrete, each other. The Eastern Standard Tribe is an abstraction. It's a whole bunch of people, and neither of us like most of them. It's useful and pleasant, but you can't put your trust in institutions. Otherwise you get Nazism. And patriotism. Blind patriotism. So there's no other kind, huh? Just jingoism? You're either loyal to your immediate circle of friends, or you're just a deluded dupe? No, that's not what I'm saying. So where does informed loyalty leave off and jingoism begin? You come on all patronizing when I talk about being loyal to the tribe, and you're certainly not loyal to VDT, nor are you loyal to Jersey. What greater purpose are you loyal to? Well, humanity, for starters. Really? What's that when it's at home? Huh? How do you express loyalty to something as big and abstract as humanity? Well, that comes down to morals, right? Not doing things that poison the world, paying taxes, change to panhandlers, supporting charities. Fede drummed his fingers on his thighs. Not murdering or raping. You know, being a good person, a moral person. Okay, that's a good code of conduct. I'm all for not murdering and raping. And not just because it's wrong, but because a world where the social norms include murdering and raping is a bad one for me to live in. Exactly. So that's the purpose of morals and loyalty, right? To create social norms that produce the world that you want to live in. Right, and that's why personal loyalty is important. Art smiled, trap baited, and sprung. Okay, so institutional loyalty, loyalty to a tribe or nation, that's not an important social norm. As far as you're concerned, we could abandon all pretense of institutional loyalty. Art dropped his voice. You could go to work for the Jersey Boys, sabotaging Virgin Deutsche Telekom, just because they're willing to pay you to do it. Nothing to do with tribal loyalty, just a job. Fede looked uncomfortable, sensing the impending rhetorical headlock. He nodded cautiously. Which means that the Jersey Boys have no reason to be loyal to you. It's just a job. So if there were an opportunity for them to gain some personal advantage by selling you out, turning you into a patsy for them, well, they should go ahead and do it, right? Don't worry, it's a rhetorical question. Jersey Boys sell you out. You take their fall, they benefit. If there was no institutional loyalty, that's where you'd end up, right? That's the social norm you want. No, of course it isn't. No, of course not. You want a social norm where individuals can be disloyal to the collective, but not vice versa. I suppose. You know it. I know it. Institutional loyalty is every bit as much about informed self-interest as personal loyalty is. The tribe takes care of me. I take care of the tribe. We'll negotiate a separate payment from Jersey for this. After all, this is outside the scope of work we're being paid for. And we'll split the money, down the middle. We'll work in a residual income for Jersey, too, because, as you say, this is bigger than Mass Pike. It's a genuinely good idea, and there's enough to go around, all right? Are you asking me or telling me? I'm asking you. This will require both of our cooperation. I'm going to need it to manufacture an excuse to go stateside and explain this to them and supervise the prototyping. You're going to have to hold down the fort here at VDT and make sure I'm clear to do my thing. If you want to go and sell this idea elsewhere, well, that's going to require my cooperation, or at least my silence. If I turn this over to VDT, they'll pop you for industrial espionage. So we need each other. Art stood and looked down at Fede, who was a good 10 centimeters shorter than he, looked down at Fede's sweaty upper lip and creased brow. We're a good team, Fede. I don't want to toss away an opportunity, but I also don't want to exploit it at the expense of my own morals. Can you agree to work with me on this and trust me to do the right thing? Fede looked up. Yes, he said. On later reflection, Art thought that the yes came too quickly, but then he was just relieved to hear it. Of course, of course. Yes, let's do it. That's just fine, Art said. Let's get to work, then. They fell into their traditional division of labor then, Art working on a variety of user experience plans, dividing each into sub-plans, then devising protocols for user testing to see what would work in the field. Fede worked on logistics from plane tickets to personal days to budget and critical path charts. They worked side by side, but still used the collaboration tools that Art had grown up with, designed to allow remote, pseudonymous parties to fit their separate work components into the same structure, resolving schedule and planning collisions where it could, and throwing exceptions where it couldn't. They worked beside each other, and each hardly knowing the other was there, and that Art thought when he thought of it, when the recipient. They worked beside each other and hardly knew the other was there, and that, Art thought, when he thought of it, when the receptionist calmed him to tell him that Linder was there for him, that was the defining characteristic of a tribalist, a norm, a modus operandi, a way of being that did not distinguish between communication face-to-face and communication at a distance. Linder? Fede said, cocking an eyebrow. I hit her with my car, Art said. Ah, Fede said. Smooth. Art waved a hand impatiently at him and went out to the reception area to fetch her. The receptionist had precious little patience for entertaining personal visitors, and Linda, in track pants and a baggy sweater, was clearly not a professional contact. The receptionist glared at him as he calmed into the lobby and extended his hand to Linda, who took it, put it on her shoulder, grabbed his ass, and then crushed their pelvises together and jammed her tongue in his ear. I missed you, she slurped, the buzz of her voice making him writhe. I'm not wearing any knickers, she continued, loud enough that he was sure that the receptionist heard. He felt the blush creeping over his face and neck and ears. The receptionist. Damn it, why was he thinking about the receptionist? Linda, he said, pulling away. Introduce her, he thought. Introduce them, and that'll make it less socially awkward. The English can't abide social awkwardness. Linda, meet... And then he trailed off, realizing he didn't actually know the receptionist's name. The receptionist glared at him from under a cap of shining candy-apple red hair, narrowing her eyes, which were painted in high style with Kubrick action figure faces. My name is Tanisha, he hissed. Or maybe it was Tanya Isaiah, or Tanisha. He still didn't know her goddamn name. And this is Linda, he said weakly. We're going out tonight. And won't you have a dirty great time then, Tanisha said. I'm sure we will, he said. Yes, Tanisha said. Art calmed the door and missed the handle, then snagged it and grabbed Linda's hand and yanked her through. I'm a little randy, she said, directly into his ear. Sorry. She giggled. Someone you have to meet, he said, reaching down to rearrange his pants to hide his boner. Ooh, right here in your office, Linda said, covering his hand with hers. Someone with 2 eyes, he said, moving his hand to his hip. Ah, she said, what a disappointment. I'm serious. I want you to meet my friend Fede. I think you two will really hit it off. Wait, Linda said. Isn't this a major step, meeting the friends? Are we getting that serious already? Oh, I think we're ready for it, Art said, draping an arm around her shoulders and resting his fingertips on the upper swell of her breast. She ducked out from under his arm and stopped in her tracks. Well, I don't. Don't I get a say in this? What? Art said. Whether it's time for me to meet your friends or not, shouldn't I get a say? Linda, I just wanted to introduce you to a coworker before we went out. He's in my office. I've got to grab my jacket there anyway. Wait, is he a friend or a coworker? He's a friend I work with. Come on, what's the big deal? Well, first you spring this on me, then you change your story and tell me he's a coworker. Now he's a friend again. I don't want to be put on display for your pals. If we're going to meet your friends, I'll dress for it, put on some makeup. This isn't fair. Linda, Art said, placating. No, she said, screw it. I'm not here to meet your friends. I came all the way across town to meet you at your office because you wanted to head back to your place after work, and you play head games with me like this? All right, Art said. I'll show you back to the lobby, and you can wait with Tanisha while I get my jacket. Don't take that tone with me, she said. What tone? Art said. Jesus Christ! You can't wait in the hall. It's against policy. You don't have a badge, so you have to be with me or in the lobby. I don't give a shit if you meet Fede or not. I won't tell you again, Art, she said. Moderate your tone. I won't be shouted at. Art tried to rewind the conversation and figure out how they came to this pass, but he couldn't. Was Linda really acting this nuts? Or was he just reading her wrong and pushing her buttons or something? Let's start over, he said, grabbing both of her hands in his. I need to get my jacket from my office. You can come with me if you want to, and meet my friend Fede. Otherwise, you can wait in the lobby. I won't be a minute. Let's go meet Fede, she said. I hope he wasn't expecting anything special. I'm not really dressed for it. He stifled a snotty remark. After all that, she was going to go and meet Fede? So what the hell were they arguing about? On the other hand, he'd got in his way. Hadn't he? He led her by the hand into his office, and behind every doorway they passed was a VDT experience designer pretending not to peek at them as they walked by, having heard every word through the tricky acoustics of O'Malley House. Fede, he said stiffly. This is Linda. Linda, this is Fede. Fede stood and treated Linda to his big, suave grin. Fede might be short, and he might have paranoid delusions, but he was trim and well-groomed, with the sort of finicky mustache that looked like a rotting caterpillar if you didn't trim it every morning. He liked to work out, and he had a tight waist and a gut you could bounce a quarter off of, and he liked to wear tight shirts that showed off his overall fitness, made him stand out among the spongy mouse potatoes of the corporate world. Art had never given it much thought, but now, standing with Fede and Linda in his tiny office, breathing in Fede's lilac vegetal and Linda's new car smell shampoo, he felt a little paunchy and sloppy. Ah, Fede said, taking her hand. This the one you hit with your car. It's a pleasure. You seem to be recovering nicely, too. Linda smiled and gave him a peck on the cheek, a few strands of her bobbed hair sticking to his mustache like cobwebs as she pulled away. It was just a love tap, she said. I'll be fine. Fede's from New York, Art said. We colonials like to stick together around the office. And Linda's from Los Angeles. Aren't there any, British people in London? Linda said, wrinkling her nose. There's Tanisha, Art said weakly. Who? Fede said. The receptionist, Linda said. Not a very nice person. With the eyes? Fede said, wriggling his fingers around his temples to indicate elaborate eye makeup. That's her, Linda said. Nasty piece of work, Fede said. Never trusted her. You're not another UE person, are you? Linda said, sizing Fede up and giving Art a playful elbow in the ribs. Who, me? No, I'm a management consultant. I work in Chelsea mostly, but when I come slumming here in Piccadilly, I like to commandeer Art's office. He's not bad for a UE geek. Not bad at all, Linda said, slipping an arm around Art's waist, wrapping her fingers around the waistband of his trousers. Did you need to grab your jacket, honey? Art's jacket was hanging on the back of his office door, and to get at it he had to crush himself against Linda as he maneuvered the door shut. He felt her breast soft on his chest, felt her breath tickle his ear, and forgot all about their argument in the corridor. All right, Art said, hooking his jacket over his shoulder with a finger, feeling flushed and fluttery. Okay, let's go. Lovely to have met you, Fede, Linda said, taking his hand. And likewise, Fede said. Chapter 15. Vigorous sex ensued. Chapter 16. Art rolled out of his bed at dark o'clock in the morning, awakened by circadians and endorphins and bladder. He staggered to the toilet in the familiar gloom of his shabby little rooms, did his business, marveled at the tenderness of his privates, fumbled with the flush mechanism, British and plumbing being two completely opposite notions, and staggered back to bed. The screen of his comm, nestled on the end table, washed the room in liquid crystal light. He tugged the sheets off Linda when he got up, and there she was, chest rising and falling softly, body rumpled and sprawled after their gymnastics. It had been transcendent and messy, and the sheets were coarse with dried fluids. He knelt on the bed and fussed with the cover some, trying for an equitable, if not entirely chivalrous, division of blankets. He bent forward to kiss a bite mark that he'd left on her shoulder. His back went pop. Somewhere down in the lumbar, somewhere just above his tailbone, a deep and unforgiving pop, ominous as the cocking of a revolver. He put his hand there and it felt okay, so he cautiously lay back. 3/4 of the way down, his entire lower back seized up, needles of fire racing down his legs and through his groin, and he collapsed. He barked with pain, an inhuman sound that he hadn't known he could make, and the rapid emptying of his lungs deepened the spasm, and he mewled. Linda opened a groggy eye and put her hand on his shoulder. "What is it, hun?" He tried to straighten out, to find a position in which the horrible, relentless pain returned whence it came. Each motion was agony. Finally the pain subsided, and he found himself pretzeled, knees up, body twisted to the left, head twisted to the right. He dared not budge from this posture, terrified that the pain would return. "It's my back," he gasped. "What? Your back?" "Yeah, I put it out. Haven't done it in years. I need an ice pack, okay? There's some headache pills in the medicine cabinet. 3 of those." "Seriously?" "Look, I get 'em myself, but I can't even sit up, much less walk. I gotta ice this down now before it gets too inflamed." "How did it happen?" "It just happens. Tai Chi helps. Please, I need ice." Half an hour later he had gingerly arranged himself with his knees up and his hips straight, and he was breathing deeply, willing the spasms to unclench. "Thanks," he said. "What now? Do I call a doctor?" "He'd just give me painkillers and tell me to lose some weight. I'll probably be like this for a week. Shit. Fetty's gonna kill me. I was supposed to go to Boston next Friday, too." "Boston? What for? For how long?" Art bunched the sheets in his fists. He hadn't meant to tell her about Boston yet, and he and Fede hadn't worked out his cover story. "Meetings," he said. 2 or 3 days. I was going to take some personal time and go see my family, too. God damn it. Pass me my comm, okay? "You're going to work now?" "I'm just going to send Fede a message and send out for some muscle relaxants. There's a 24-hour chemist at Paddington Station that delivers." "I'll do it. You lie flat." And so it began. Bad enough to be helpless, weak as a kitten and immobile, but to be at the whim of someone else, to have to provide sufficient excuse for every use of his comm, every crawl across the flat. Christ. "Just give me my comm, please. I can do it faster than I can explain how to do it." In 36 hours he was ready to tear at the throat of anyone who tried to communicate with him. He'd harangued Linda out of the flat and crawled to the kitchen floor, painstakingly assembling a nest of pillows and sofa cushions close to the ice maker and the painkillers in the toilet. His landlady, an unfriendly Chinese lady who apparently had been wealthy beyond words in Hong Kong and clearly resented her reduced station, agreed to sign for the supply drops he calmed to various retailers around London. He was giving himself a serious crick in his neck and shoulder from working supine, calm held over his head. The painkillers weighted his arms and churned his guts, and at least twice an hour he'd grog his way into a better position, forgetting the tenderness in his back, and bark afresh as his nerves shrieked and sizzled. 2 days later and he was almost unrecognizable, a gamey, unshaven lump in the tiny kitchen, his nest gray with sweat and stiff with spilled takeaway curry. He suspected that he was over-medicating, forgetting when he'd taken his tablets and taking more. In one of his more lucid moments he realized that there was a feedback cycle at play there. The more pills he took, the less equipped he was to judge whether it was time to take his pills, so the more pills he took. His mind meandered through a solution to this, a timer-equipped pill case that reset when you took the lid off and chimed if you took the lid off again before the set interval had elapsed. He reached for his comm to make some notes, found it wedged under one of his hocks, greasy with sweat, batteries dead. He hadn't let his comm run down in a decade at least. His landlady let Linda in on the 4th day, as he was sleeping fitfully with a pillow over his face to shut out the light from the window. He tried to draw the curtains a day or 2 days before, but had given up when he tried to pull himself upright on the sill, only to collapse in a fresh gout of writhing. Linda crouched by his head and stroked his greasy hair softly until he flipped the pillow off his face with a movement of his neck. He squinted up at her, impossibly fresh and put together and incongruous in his world of reduced circumstances. "Art. Art. 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 You're a mess, Art. Why aren't you in bed?" "Too far," he mumbled. "What would your grandmother say?" Dear, oh dearie, come on, let's get you up and into bed, and then I'm going to have a doctor and a massage therapist sent in. You need a nice hot bath, too. It'll be good for you and hygienic beside. No tub, he said petulantly. I know, I know. Don't worry about it. I'll sort it out. And she did, easing him to his feet and helping him into bed. She took his house keys and disappeared for some unknowable time, then reappeared with fresh linen and store wrappers, which she lay on the bed carefully, making tight hospital corners and rolling him over, nurse style, to do the other side. He heard her clattering in the kitchen, running the faucets, moving furniture. He reminded to ask her to drop his comm and its charger. He reminded himself to ask her to drop his comm and its charger, then forgot. Come on, time to get up again, she said, gently peeling the sheets back. It's okay, he said, waving weakly at her. Yes, it is. Let's get up. She took his ankles and gradually turned him on the bed so that his feet were on the floor, then grabbed him by his stinking armpits and helped him to his feet. He stumbled with her into the crowded living room, dimly aware of the furniture stacked on itself around him. She left him hanging on the door lintel, then began removing his clothes. She actually used a scissors to cut away his stained t-shirt and boxer shorts. All right, she said, into the tub. No tub, he said. Look down, Art, she said. He did. An inflatable wading pool sat in the middle of his living room, flanked by an upended coffee table and his sofa, standing on its ear. The pool was filled with steaming, cloudy water. There's a bunch of eucalyptus oil and Epsom salts in there. You're going to love it. That night, Art actually tottered into the kitchen and got himself a glass of water, one hand pressed on his lower back. The cool air of the apartment fanned the mentholated liniment on his back and puckered goose pimples all over his body. After days of leaden limbs, he felt clean and light, his senses singing as though he were emerging from a fever. He drank the water and retrieved his comm from its cradle. He propped several pillows up on his headboard and fired up his comm. Immediately began to buzz and hum and chatter and blink, throwing up alerts about urgent messages, pages and calls pending. The lightness he'd felt fled him, and he began the rotten business of triaging his inbox. One strong impression emerged almost immediately. Fede wanted him in Boston. The Jersey clients were interested in the teasers that Fede had forwarded to them. The Jersey clients were obsessed with the teasers that Fede had forwarded to them. The Jersey clients were howling for more after the teasers that Fede had forwarded to them. Fede had negotiated some big bucks on approval if only Art would go and talk to the Jersey clients. The Jersey clients had arranged a meeting with some of the Mass Pike decision-makers for the following week, and now they were panicking because they didn't have anything except the teasers Fede had forwarded to them. You really should try to go to Boston, Art. We need you in Boston, Art. You have to go to Boston, Art. Art, go to Boston. Boston, Art. Boston. Linda rolled over in bed and peered up at him. You're not working again, are you? Shh, Art said. It's less stressful if I get stuff done than if I let it pile up. And why is your forehead all wrinkled up? I have to go to Boston, he said. Day after tomorrow, I think. Jesus, are you insane? Are you trying to cripple yourself? I can recover in a hotel room just as well as I can recover here. It's just rest from here on in anyway, and a hotel will probably have a tub. I can't believe I'm hearing this. You're not going to recover in Boston. You'll be at meetings and stuff. Christ! I've got to do this, Art said. I just need to figure out how. I'll go business class, take along a lumbar pillow, and spend every minute that I'm not in a meeting in a tub or getting a massage. I could use a change of scenery about now anyway. You're a goddamned idiot. Do you know that? Art knew it. He also knew that there was an opportunity to get back to EST, to make a good impression on the Jersey clients, to make his name in the tribe, and to make a bundle of cash. His back be damned. He was sick of lying around anyways. I've got to go, Linda. It's your life, she said, tossing aside the cover, but I don't have to sit around watching you ruin it. She disappeared into the hallway, then re-emerged, dressed and with her coat on. I'm out of here. Linda, Art said. No, she said. Shut up. Why the fuck should I care if you don't, anyway? I'm going. See you around. Come on, let's talk about this. East Coast pizza, flat Boston twangs, the co-eds rushing through Harvard Square, and oh, maybe a side trip to New York, maybe another up to Toronto, and a roti at one of the halal Guyanese places on Queen Street. He levered himself painfully out of bed and hobbled to the living room, where Linda was arguing with the taxi dispatcher over her comm, trying to get them to send out a cab at 2 a.m. Come on, Art said. Hang that up. Let's talk about this. She shot him a dirty look and turned her back, kept on ranting down her comm at the dispatcher. Linda, don't do this. Come on. I am on the phone, she said to him, covering the mouthpiece. Shut the fuck up, will you? She uncovered the mouthpiece. Hello? Hello? The dispatcher had hung up. She snapped the comm shut and slammed it into her purse. She whirled to face Art, snorting angry breath through her nostrils. Her face was such a mask of rage that Art recoiled. His back twinged. He clasped at it and carefully lowered himself onto the sofa. Don't do this, okay? He said. I need support, not haranguing. What's there to say? Your mind's already made up. You're going to go off and be a fucking idiot and cripple yourself. Go ahead. You don't need my permission. Sit down, please, Linda, and talk to me. Let me explain my plan and my reasons, okay? Then I'll listen to you. Maybe we can sort this out and actually, come to understand each other's point of view. Fine, she said, and slammed herself into the sofa. Art bounced, and he seized his back reflexively, waiting for the pain, but beyond a low-grade throbbing, he was okay. I have a very large opportunity in Boston right now, one that could really change my life. Money, sure, but prestige and profile, too. A dream of an opportunity. I need to attend 1 or 2 meetings, then I can take a couple days off. I'll get Fede to okay first-class flights. We get chits we can use to upgrade to Virgin Upper. They've got hot tubs and massage therapists now. I'll check into a spa, there are a bunch on Route 128, and get a massage every morning and have a physiotherapist up to the room every night. I can't afford that stuff here, but Fede'll spring for it if I go to Boston. Let me expense it. I'll be a good lad, I promise. I still think you're being an idiot. Why can't Fede go? Because it's my deal. Why can't whoever you're meeting with come over here? It's complicated. Bullshit. I thought you wanted to talk about this? I do. I just can't talk about that part. Why not? Are you afraid I'll blab? Christ, Art, give me some credit. Who the hell would I blab to, anyway? Look, Linda, the deal itself is confidential. A secret. A secret's only a secret if you don't tell it to anyone, all right? So I'm not going to tell you. It's not relevant to the discussion anyway. Art, 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 Art. You make it all sound so reasonable, and you can dress it up with whatever words you want, but at the end of the day, we both know you're full of shit on this. There's no way doing this is better for you than staying here in bed. If Fede's the problem, let me talk to him. Jesus, no. Why not? It's not appropriate, Linda. This is a work-related issue. It wouldn't be professional. Okay, I'll concede that flying and going to a meeting is more stressful than not flying and not going to meetings, but let's take it as a given that I really need to go to Boston. Can't we agree on that and then discuss ways that we can mitigate the risk associated with the trip? Jesus, you're an idiot, she said, but she seemed to be on the verge of smiling. But I'm your idiot, right? He said, hopefully. Sure you are. She did smile then, and cuddled up to him on the sofa. They don't have fucking hot tubs in Virgin Upper, do they? Yeah, Art said, kissing her earlobe. They really do.